Alrighty, welcome YouTube to our discussion of Neon Genesis Evangelion. I said it again. I don't know. It just for some reason.
Genesis?
I guess so. Evangelion, episodes 1 to 4. This is our discussion for it. Lindsay had the idea of just talking through it. So I've seen the show before. We're reacting to it on our Patreon. For our $10 tier, you can go to patreon.com/BOLDcast. Check that out. We're just doing it unedited and just posting our reactions. We've been having some good discussions about it. And you've been enjoying the show a lot, so you wanted to do a discussion sort of every few episodes.
Yeah, I just thought that this would be a good way to keep those of you who don't want to pay $10 in the loop, or maybe if you're considering to join or not, to give you a taste of what we're thinking about the show so that you kind of know what you're getting into with our reactions. And I thought we had been thinking, we'll just have an end discussion video once we're finished. But I was thinking we've already had such good discussions, and I feel like I have so much to say about the show already after just 4 episodes. So just to give an update every so often might be really good, and be able to give a semi our discussions from our reactions where it's very not uninfluenced by what's coming next, to give you sort of the step-by-step as we go through the show, and then of course we will have the grand finale discussion with everything included, and look back on what we thought before.
Well, so yeah, I guess for my background, real quick, I've talked about it before, but I've seen the show. I watched it in 2015, which is when this show, the setting of this show takes place. And yeah, I liked it. I didn't appreciate it that much when I saw it for the first time. It kind of, a lot of it went over my head. In fact, most of it did. And I didn't enjoy it nearly as much as a lot of the other classic shows that I was sort of recommended in my early anime days. And it's a shame, but in hindsight, I liked it a lot more. So I neglected watching anything of it until now, where I tried to rewatch it at one point. I watched the first episode and just didn't continue with it, not because I didn't like it, but just because I didn't continue with it. And then now here we are, and I'm reacting to it. All feels like for the first time again. I remember a lot of the stuff that happened in these first 4 episodes, but I am astonished by the amount that I don't remember, the amount that just went completely over my head. All of the subtext is incredible, and the visual style, I'm a lot more aware of how good it is visually. Those are just some of the things that I really picked up on. And you're seeing it for the first time.
Yeah.
How are you liking it?
I just from the first 4 episodes, actually even after the first episode, I'm just this might be one of my new favorites. We'll see as we go along, but I haven't been this excited or this drawn into a show other than Promised Neverland season 1. That was the first time that an anime right from the start grabbed me. And this is the second time. And you've seen most of those of you on our channel, you can see most anime that I've seen and my reaction to it. And this one just instantly, it just is so good. And you can really tell, and one of the things is continually amazing me is the care and thought that is put into every single scene. Every single frame of this show is so well thought out. And I don't know much about art. I don't know much about animation. I feel like you kind of know more about that stuff than I do in terms of just being able to tell quality. I'm kind of just whatever most of the time. But with this show, it truly enhances what they're trying to tell you. And in fact, episode 4, they barely had any lines, but the themes and message and emotions that were going on was so apparent through the use of visuals. It was incredible. And I don't know, it's just everything about this show. I'm continually amazed by the technology that they have, the way that they've thought the process through of, okay, right now we have this in 20 years. I like that there's not a huge time leap from the time that they're making this to the future.
20-year difference.
20-year difference, and how they've thought we have for example, we have a camcorder. What's the next thing of that? Oh, what if it didn't only take video? What if you could watch TV in the handheld device? Isn't that like, and I just appreciate that, because it still feels like futuristic, obviously a different future than what we have and what we're living in now, but you can see that there was something, and they took it a few levels down the line. And I just appreciate that, and I appreciate how everything about the EVA units, how they work, how you can tell that, okay, it opens up like this and the person goes in there, and it just feels like whoever made it thought about it and wasn't just like, oh, I want this to be in my show. I want the kid to go into a giant robot looking thing and trample around. It was very thought through of, okay, if I'm going to have that, I need to know how that works. It can't just be pulled out of my ass out of thin air, with no consequences or like hinging on any kind of reality, regardless of whether it's the future or not. It feels like I can see how they got to that point.
And I made a comment in the reactions about the technology being so highlighted, especially in the first 2 episodes, but throughout the entire show, it's like the technology is extremely important to the like visual. It's used to communicate visually, like the complexity and the contrivance, or like how controlled and constructed everything is, and how mankind's trying to like control everything when there's like all these angels coming in that they can't control. Everything is they're trying to it says so much though, and it has to say so much, because this isn't adapted from a manga or anything like that. I made this point in the I think the first or second episode discussion, but if you look closely in a lot of the technology, it's everything locks together, everything like snaps or twists or screws in or overlaps each other. It's not just a bunch of cables going into like a little housing or whatever, or a bunch of batteries strewn about stacked, or a bunch of computer monitors all over the place that don't make any sense. It's like the mechanisms are so complex and detailed that like even just a bridge in the background has like that folding like thing, and it's like, and in the chamber where unit 1 is held with the pool, there's like a little boat, there's like a little dinghy, and it's just like the fact that the people who are making this thought through that this place would have the safety regulations to have this dinghy floating in this pool at all times, just in case somebody fell in and needed to be rescued, because it is like a giant pool of water. Like that's the amount of detail and thought they put into this, and it communicates that everyone involved in the production, or at least the director, is thinking intently about so many different details, because the fact that there is that boat there means that there's these safety regulations, means there's an entire structure and probably division, and so many people are responsible for so many things, and it really puts a lot more pressure on Shinji. That's why it's important, because if it was just, oh, the entire world is counting on you, and there's no context for that, you don't see all the kids at school, you don't see all the people in the town, you don't see like the deserted city where it's like this it's Tokyo, and it's completely, they have to evacuate constantly. It's like there's so much, the enormity is very well communicated, but it also, the fact that it is always evacuated or always feels empty also says a lot about how Shinji is feeling, because it's told from his perspective. There's so much detail in it, and it's all on purpose. It's all there to communicate visually things that a lesser show would tell you, and that's what makes it stand out to me.
It's so, yeah, exactly. There's nothing there that's by accident, and there's nothing there that was just thrown in to make it seem cool. A lot of shows, especially if they're going for sci-fi, like you said, let's add some extra monitors, let's add some extra wires, let's add, like, But no, if I can't look at that and in everything in the show, I can look at it and see that probably
has a use.
Yeah. There's nothing in there that I look at it and I'm like, oh, they just put that there to fill up some space. And the reason that it's so detailed is because they thought about it and said, oh, I'm like designing this elevator. I'm gonna I'm just gonna zoom in on this one part of it, and I'm gonna go all out. I'm gonna
like
make this a complete thing just to show, no, it is not just a series of rectangles moving up the screen.
Mm-hmm.
It is a working machine that has been designed and, like, adapted from what you know as an escalator. Well, now they've taken it to the next level, and I'll show you
on it. Yeah, and
how that I'm taking it to the next level, and, you know...
There's so many examples of that. It's
really impressive, and the fact that it wasn't adapted from anything is so wonderful, because I think that if it was, they wouldn't go so hard on all those details, because
in a manga you can't show how everything interlocks and how all these machines work.
How these moving parts are...
You would see, like, a bunch of, like, maybe a few shots of, like... large scale, like those big shots of like where the Ava chamber, like that would probably be there with like the dinghy or whatever, and you know, all the different
maybe some close-ups,
all the different panels on the wall and the writing, but like there's instructional like safety precautions and like labels, like giant, like on the Ava Unit 0, which we only seen like a tiny glimpse of. It has like the 0 on the on the helmet, and then Unit 1 has like, if you see on the sides of the jaw of Unit 1, there's like kanji up here, and it's probably like some kind of, I don't know what it says, but it's some kind of like maybe safety warning or instructional thing, so that when people are working on it, they can see that. Like, it has a use, and it's like, it says so much about the structure that, and it makes you feel, because these robots are so big, these things are so huge, to have those little details that, like, this is a project and a machine that thousands of people are probably working on. It needs to have information around so that people can do their jobs effectively. Like, that all is communicated to you visually through those small details. And the fact that they're there adds so much, not just to, like, set the scale of everything, but it adds so much to, again, like I said, the pressure that Shinji is feeling, because he is working with this machinery, with this equipment that, like, it is the product of so much research and development. So much has gone into that. Everything has been building up so that he could do this, and he can't. And that it just adds more to the stress that he's feeling. Like, just to give that sense of enormity. Yeah.
It's yeah. I just cannot stress enough how blown away I am by, like, everything we've been talking about. And you mentioned before as well, like, the city being empty. We noticed as well, and I think that you hadn't noticed this before, but in the apartment that he's staying at, we see the outside view. We see it multiple times, and their balcony is the only one with furniture on it because everyone else has left. They're in a huge apartment building, and they're the only ones in there. And they just show, and it's an image, and it's in another show, it's just a filler image. It's like the swing shot or something. It's something, for example, like,
it's just an establishing shot. Yeah.
This is where we are now. We're at the apartment, and then we're in the apartment. But it says so much more, and every time you see it, it reminds you that they're alone there.
It's really economist storytelling. To use what would just be a simple establishing shot as a bit of storytelling to communicate information visually, prevents you from having to just tell the audience flat out, oh, yeah, everyone moved out the other week. It's like, okay, well, why don't you just show the fact that it's empty? That's way better. And it communicates that sense of loneliness. I don't feel like there's this sense of loneliness when you, Misato, tell me, yeah, everyone left. I mean, I feel that when other people say that after seeing how empty and lonely everything feels.
And it's when, I'm sorry, I still don't remember his name, the kid with the glasses.
I'm gonna look up his name.
Yeah, we talk about him a lot, and we keep forgetting his name.
Ida.
Okay, Ida. So when we see him, and he's playing a war out in this field by himself, and it's It's
in episode 4, yeah.
Yeah, in episode 4. It's such... After this whole episode that's almost been silent the entire episode, we've just been following Shinji around as he left town and then slowly returned to town. And we see Ida out in this field, these beautiful shots of this, like, grass, and he's playing, and it's happy because they have this little moment of they're really there for each other and they're spending time together. But it's sad. The more you think about it, the sadder it gets. He's playing out in that field by himself because we find out he doesn't have parents. And we also find, and then when you realize that, you realize the only reason he's still there in this town that's getting destroyed
that people are
is
abandoning.
Because no one is looking out for him enough to say, we need to get you out of here because we care about you.
There's nobody there for him. And it's like, it's also sad that he's so chipper about all of it, that he, like, you know, it feels like he doesn't really know a difference, you know. And it is sad. I remember when I watched it for the first time, I think I cried, and it's only episode 4, and because I don't know what it is about that, just like that feeling of loneliness is so well communicated there, and he's not even like acting sad. He's not crying. He's making the best of this situation alone, spending time entertaining himself as a kid. And he's 14, but he's out there playing soldier by himself, like creating this whole story, playing both roles of like the dying commander and like the private who won't leave him behind, that kind of thing. Like, he's literally looking out for himself. That like he is playing the guy who's dying and the person trying to look out for them. And it's like metaphorical for what he's actually going through. And it's not communicated in a sappy or obvious way necessarily at all. It's only when you think about it, you are rewarded for thinking about it. And you don't need to.
Everything in this show so far, it's been, you don't need to look deeper, but if you do, it is so worth it. And like, I can't say enough like how awesome that is for people like us who watch shows the way we do and like want to pick them apart and look deeper into it. The fact that we're constantly disappointed by when we look deeper, all we see is someone like haphazardly moving characters around in a way to create a story. But when it's something like this where everything has been thought out, I haven't come across a single thing that I'm like, oh, maybe not that. Like, there hasn't been anything that I've caught on. And there was a moment where he's at school, and I'm like, why on earth is he at school?
Shinji?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's revealed that there hasn't been an attack for 50... I mean, well, I guess it was kind of already revealed, but...
It was revealed before that,
but it's revealed before that, but it was reaffirmed that, like, they aren't expecting another one. Mm-hmm. They aren't expecting something else, another angel,
they're
to
playing
come
catch
upon
up
them.
Constantly, yeah.
Yeah, they genuinely, he wouldn't be at school if they thought that was going to happen, but they didn't think it was going to happen because why would they?
Yeah.
And like, there's no reason to put your pause on life because I'm sure after the last time it happened, they were like totally in on it, waiting for the next thing. And then it just kept not happening. And they were still ready and still working on it, but not every single person involved needs to be 100% focused on that when it might never even get used again. They don't know. And like that, the more you think about it, the more it makes sense. And if that was the one thing that stuck out to me as in, why are they in school? And then it's immediately like, oh, that's why they're in school. It's just...
Do you have a favorite character so far?
I don't know. I kind of like all the characters equally. They're all good.
Like which ones?
His name was Ida, right?
Yeah.
Ida is a good character because he like plays kind of the comedic relief, but is also super depressing when you see him too much. Shinji is great for like many reasons, just to get really get to like, I feel like he's really relatable in a weird way, even though what he's up against is so unrelatable. It's not even funny how unrelatable his situation is, but the feelings that he's feeling are super common and super basic, and it's him not knowing how to feel or what to feel or how to express how he is, what he feels inside is super common and super normal. Like if you're a teenager and anything is happening, and no matter what it is, he's facing the end of the world and having to be the savior. Someone might have said your shirt was ugly,
or just a test,
test,
school.
or
I think it's a lot of times it's sort of the easiest point of comparison would be like, stress in school.
Yeah.
That like you're constantly like he's constantly doing like it's a big thing that's repeated is that he just knows how to do what people tell him, because that's how he makes his way through life, and that's kind of like what school kind of teaches you to do, is you're just do what you're writing down what they tell you to write down and showing up when they tell you to show up and doing what they tell you to do. Yeah. But the problem is, as we're finding out, that's not always the right answer, because Misato in episode 3 told him to retreat. Mm-hmm. And he took a risk out of desperation to save his life, and he ended up saving probably more people because it was a huge fucking gamble. But he didn't think for himself necessarily, but he went against what they were saying and did what he felt he needed to do in that situation. And it wasn't the smartest thing, but it wasn't what they were saying. And it's possible he saved more lives because of that. And that means something, because like if you compare it to school, it's like people at school always tell you, like, you need to do this and that, and then you need to go to fucking university, you need to get a job, etc., etc. And this is reaching a little bit far, but I feel like it's intentional that connection's there, that it's all he knows how to do, and it's scary to do anything else. Mm-hmm. But it worked out because he did something else, and I think I don't think that that's a mistake. I think that that's part of the commentary, or at least a way of interpreting what they're trying to say, because they're saying a lot, and I feel like it's all being communicated really, really well. And I feel like they're saying a lot by not saying a lot. True. We don't need an inner monologue of Shinji every 5 minutes talking about this, that, I'm such a failure. We don't need that. We know how he's feeling like that, and they're showing it in creative ways, and he's expressing himself in a realistic way, and it's more realistic that we're not getting that inner monologue, because he might not, because he's so young and he doesn't know how to express how he's feeling. He doesn't even know how to express it to himself. Mm-hmm. He's not admitting these things even to himself. It was by running away that he was able to start thinking about it, because I don't think before he really understood, but the fact that he is he calls himself a coward and shit and is freaking out is, that's something that he's learning about himself, but it's not like the actual story. I said this in the reaction as well. Which you can watch at patreon.com/BOLDcast. But I said this there as well, that he calls himself weak, a coward, a wimp, and it's I guess you're that, but the point of him saying that isn't a description, a self-report of his own psychological diagnosis. It's him being self-deprecating. It's because he fucking feels bad. He feels like shit. He feels scared. That's why he's saying it. He's not saying it because, another show might do, he's, stopping to give, a perfect summary of his entire psychological history. He's breaking down and he feels bad. That's what, it's the fact that he's saying it, the fact that he's saying those things to these people now, it demonstrates a growth of understanding of himself. Not a great thing to be thinking about yourself, but at least he is more able to communicate what he's feeling. Mm-hmm. But the fact that he is communicating it in that way and he thinks that of himself says more about his character than what he's saying, or just as much. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they're choosing to do it that way is a conscious choice, and a lesser show would just fuck it up and not use that kind of dialogue properly. Most shows don't make proper use of subtext like this. And it's really like you said, he's not
accurately breaking down his stuff. That's how he's feeling. He's like, I'm weak, I'm a coward, I'm this, I'm that. I don't think that most people looking at him in that situation would ever possibly think that he's already been more brave and more courageous out of like necessity and at a detriment to himself than literally anyone else, other than one other person in this world. So it's and the fact that the other two guys that he's saying this to like seem to come to the same conclusion. They don't think he's a coward.
Yeah.
They don't think he's shitty.
They don't blame him. Toji specifically is like, if anyone blames you, if things get destroyed, I'll punch him right in the face. It's like, he doesn't blame him.
The fact that they see that, and then they're like, we need to stick by this guy even more. They follow him to the train station. They wait and, wait for him to leave, and they don't want him to leave, and they want to be there for him, but they can't. It's like, it's so good and so sad. But they don't. It's such a sad and like depressing thing. Like most of this show so far,
because it's relatable, not just because it's like so.
Not just because they're like
crazy
beating you over the head. It's sad. It's sad. Don't forget that it's sad.
Yeah,
it's
nobody needed to die in a car fire for you to think that it's sad. You just need to see somebody feeling lonely, and that's
in a realistic way.
Yes.
And what I feel is that the stakes fit the like reaction and the result, but they're so high that they could be even less, and I would definitely still believe it because it's just being portrayed in a way that you can't help but believe it. And it's because they're not just telling us, they're showing us in a multitude of different ways, in his actions, in the visuals, in like when we see from his point of view and the city is like flying around in all pink. It's like that shot of what we're seeing, like what he's seeing is more than getting his inner monologue. It's like it's just the visuals are really strong with this show, and
that's only
incredible.
half of that's like what the show's actually about, but that's only half of what we see is all of the emotional stuff. Half of it is also, we've spent almost half an hour talking. We haven't even talked at all about the fights. Yeah. We haven't said a single word about the fights, which are great in these first few episodes for sure. Way better than I remembered. It's like, I said it also in the reaction, but like, it goes, they do so much. And again, the technology, what we talked about that of like the framing of everything and the establishment of the amount of work and the scale of not only the things themselves, but the infrastructure behind creating them. Like, it adds so much when they're actually fighting, because it's like there's three states that the fight goes through, or that three things that the fights, at least the fights that we saw, employ in order to give like impact to the audience. What I've been able to break down. There's like the anime part where people are flipping through the air and like doing crazy punches and kicks or whatever. And then there's the realistic aspect of the weight and scale of these giant robots or giant monsters or whatever. And where they like move slowly at first and gather momentum, and there's the scale of it, and they're like using the environment of these giant buildings. The sense of scale is there, and the realistic sort of momentum and force behind them. That's the second aspect. The third aspect is like the personal, primal, emotional aspect of the fights, where like especially in the first fight at the end of the first fight in episode 2, I noted that like the fight goes from like flipping through the air, but also having that element of momentum and force to communicate, even though there's that time where Ava 1 flips through the air and like does this crazy kick or whatever.
It's still something to be reckoned with. It's still a real object in the world.
But it also has that anime flair, that larger than life thing that like keeps it visually interesting and not just like a giant. It's like it's able to use the medium of animation in a way that's interesting and expressive without breaking that sort of scale and momentum. And then, after Ava 1 like snaps the angel's arms and like twists them around and rips them off and kicks it to the ground and everything, it cuts to like a low angle shot kind of from the side, and Ava 1 rips these like spikes off of the front of the angel's chest and like holding a knife stabs over and over again, and it goes from like giant kaiju battle to like murder scene. Like also the way they present Ava Unit 1 in the Berserker mode is so like predatorial, primal, and not completely juxtaposed to, like we said, all of the technology and everything that goes into creating it. It's such feels like such an anomaly that so much, like the entire world has poured all of their resources into creating this thing, and with all of the bureaucracy, with all of the technology, with all of the research and development at their fingertips, this cold clinical metal thing, and everything is so mechanical that created it, but out of it comes this primal, like just ball of rage and emotion, and like it's crazy. It feels, it's like this organic thing that comes out of it. It feels like, and it's just so interesting, that and juxtaposition, and they play with that kind of thing a lot.
And it's so good, and like, yeah, this is like, it's like another visual aspect of the show, the design of these things. We talked a lot about the design of Ava Unit 1 and how it's hunched over, has like the wide set arms, the very slim center, and then solid legs. And that just like the silhouette that it creates, the fact that it feels like a real like creature, like it feels like a predator. It feels like it's like so slim in the middle. It's like a starved animal, and it will fuck you up. Yeah. If it's like coming at you, it's looking super evil. It's
like hunched over and kind of bent towards its prey, kind of.
It has like it's like hunched, but not in like a.
It's like the neck is forward, like it's pointing, you know, like it's pointing at
like
prey.
A dog when they when they're getting ready to
like a wolf,
strike.
like how wolves are also like thin in the frame in the
middle.
Like
a wolf.
It kind of has that same anatomy there. It's cool, and it's so great to talk about this, because a lot of times we talk about shows and we're giving the benefit of the doubt that we're not reaching farther than the show is. But you know, when you watch something like this, and it's why it's maintained its popularity over so many years, is that we're not reaching further than the show. There's so much more beyond where we are.
We can reach even farther.
We can reach way farther. It's the equivalent of normally if you walk onto a stage during a giant play production and you literally look behind the curtain, you'll see a bunch of people moving ladders around and shit and changing costumes and stuff. In this case, you walk onto the stage, you look behind the curtain, and you see another play, and you look back and you realize that you walking on the stage, looking behind the curtain, was an intentional part of the production. It was you doing that was part of the plan for you to see what's even deeper. Like it's all intentional, and it's so good to see.
It's so nice.
It's really rewarding as reviewers, as reactors, to watch something that we're confident in, you know?
Yeah, I don't feel like, and like our discussions, like we're doing this again, we've literally already talked about all of this, but we're still ready to talk about it again, because it's so good, and I don't feel like I'm wrong. I don't feel like I'm wrong for wanting to talk about it. As with some shows where it's like, I want to go there, but I feel like I shouldn't because I feel like they didn't want me to, and if I do, I'll like hit a wall.
Yeah.
I'll hit a wall because I wasn't supposed to go down that route, and then now I'm too deep, and
it's like playing a video game and being like, hey, I want to go look over there, and then you just run into an invisible wall.
Yeah.
Or you just like run off the side of the map and start falling into the void. Like, it feels like that a lot of times, but when you go over there, you see it and you find, oh, there's a note, there's like something over here to find, you know? It's so satisfying, because it is kind of like a game when you're doing a review like this. It's engaging, and it's something that pulls you in and like wants you to think about it. Is so refreshing. And I can't wait to do more stuff like this on our Patreon, which you can check out right now, where you can see the reactions and even lengthier discussions, unless there's anything more you want to talk about.
Let me just think for a second. I think that was it.
Yeah, and you can go see all the reactions to the first 4 episodes, and probably by the time this is posted, there might be more. But yeah, just check out on Patreon. At least the first 4 episodes are there. We're recording this before we have any set schedule. We just sat down and watched all these, and I think from now on, maybe every 4 episodes we could sit down and do like a longer reaction, or maybe every session or so.
That's what I was thinking. Every session.
Yeah. So if we watch more or less, then we can do that. But yeah, for those of you who can't afford or just don't want to support on Patreon, totally fine. We're giving these videos to you because we don't want to gatekeep, or we don't want to keep our opinions from you guys, but it is Patreon only show. We're probably not going to post it to YouTube now or ever. So if you Copyright's pretty bad for Evangelion.
You do want to see the reactions, they are on Patreon, but if you don't, I hope that you enjoyed this review and like thought that it was a worthwhile thing to have, and I hope that you're satisfied with that if you do like this show and you wanted to know our opinions. So yeah, and please leave a like on this video. It would really help. This is not our regular format, so please like, please subscribe, and enjoy. Bye-bye.